Hi everyone, so today I'll be doing a review on the new Bath& Body Works 14.5 ounce through a candle in the scent Popcorn and Slushy. This is a limited edition candle, which is a part of the Perfect Pairings collection, which was released for Candle Day 2025 or Candle Day weekend now. The retail price, $25.95. However, since I purchased this on Candle Day, I paid $9.95 before tax. The approximate burn time of this candle is 45 hours, and my particular batch code is 5269AG01. The online description reads, with a handful of buttery, crunchy popcorn and a sip of syrupy frozen slush, this iconic movie theater combo really takes you back. Fragrance notes, a movie marathon with a blue raspberry slushy and a large buttered popcorn. The strength on cold, I would give this a 7 out of 10. So to briefly talk about the packaging, I really like that they opted to put colored wax in this. The wicks are those thinner core wicks, which typically don't give me any issues, unlike those thicker rope wicks. So the label, it's essentially just a stick-on label. You see the popcorn to the left and the slushy on the right, and it's categorized as rare. However, if you're into vendor wax, I feel like you could easily replicate this fragrance. I do think that the pictures look very cute, very cutesy. Although I don't know if this would be like good if you're giving it, well, this is a fun fragrance. So you know what? The pictures are fine. So the strength on cold, again, I would give it a 7 out of 10. But one thing about it, though, I noticed that the popcorn really comes to life when you go to burn it. On cold, I would give the distribution of popcorn to slushy. The slushy is really the scent that takes center stage in the forefront. So initially, I thought this was more of like 80-90% blue raspberry slushy and maybe 10 to 20% of the buttered popcorn. I like it that the popcorn note was very subtle, yet it was blended throughout the fragrance. And when I read that it was a large popcorn initially on cold, I thought, this does not smell like a large popcorn because a large popcorn has a lot of butter. It really overtakes the slushy fragrance. At least to me, there's not really like a super potent smell to a slushy. So that was one little critique that I had. But on cold, definitely, I think it's very realistic and I think it's true to the name. There's like, this isn't one of those candles that it's named something, the scent notes say something, and it smells like something completely different. I did, however, expect a little bit more popcorn. So on cold, I was slightly disappointed because while I can detect it, I feel like some people who went in there or wanted to smell a 50-50 distribution might be slightly disappointed. To me, however, on cold, it doesn't smell like freshly popped popcorn. That corn popped kernel note isn't quite there, but you do get that buttery grease, almost that's left over in the container after you've eaten about a third into your bag. Because for me, the popcorn aspect of this, I think it's missing this salty component, at least to my nose, but it's still very nostalgic. It's great. Again, very realistic. So it immediately reminds you of that icy that you would have in the movie theaters where you could choose the red one or the blue one. I think the red one used to be cherry, or it's still cherry. I do have to say though, it smells slightly less frozen or watery. I think that the emphasis is definitely on the syrup note because there's a heaviness to the sweetness, or not heaviness, but I feel like the sweetness is really amped up of it and it combines well with the buttery aspect of the popcorn. So again, ratio 80-90% slushy, 10 to 20% popcorn on cold. All right, so here's an overhead view of my candle. If you can see here, as of right now, I'm about 50% of the way done with the candle. There's a little bit of mushroom top fallout, but that was because earlier on, I felt like I left my wicks a little bit longer than normal. But the flames here are definitely medium strong to strong. But to briefly go back to my first burn, I did not trim my wicks and it did create quite significant mushroom tops. So I did have to cut my first burn short. I believe I cut it down to maybe 2 hours. My flames were definitely strong, medium to high, so same as it is right now in the midway mark. Oddly enough, it wasn't sooting, which I would expect because those mushroom tops were pretty huge. Again, always kept my burn time under 4 hours. For me, even right now, it pulls out within 45 minutes. which is awesome. No issues pulling out. And again, strangely enough, no issues sitting. So I guess the biggest problem in terms of performance is the slight mushroom fallout. Okay, so where I have my main issue, I love the fragrance. However, this is a little bit light for my liking. I have this burning in my medium-sized bedroom. It's located at the end of the hallway, and there's currently no AC going on. So there's nothing really helping this to throw the scent. I would give it strength, a barely there 7 out of 10, or maybe 6.5, depending. I haven't been burning this in a hurricane, so maybe it'd be a solid 7 if I did. But I love this fragrance, so I would want something stronger. I can kind of see how some people might be a little bit put off by this fragrance because of the buttery aspect, if it was any stronger. But to me, I love it. I just want more of it. Another caveat is that I feel like the room isn't super equally, the scent isn't equally dispersed in my room. However, it does a pretty good job at filling the space that I'm in. So the strength is around 7, and I would also give the throw about a 7 because it does fill up the space. There are pockets in my room, but I think that would help if there was some airflow going on. I do have to say that I never go nose blind to it, and I think it's because of that butter note that I can always detect. So again, much like another candle from, I believe, the Sunday Funday collection, it also has pockets and kind of performs like a soy candle at times. I think that the projection gets a little bit better after the 1 hour mark because I think it extends a little bit past the bedroom into the hallway, but it isn't super intense. And one thing I have to say is that after I extinguish this scent, it does linger in the air for about an hour. I think that's mainly due to the popcorn notes and the butter mixed together with some slight sweetness. So I'm about to extinguish this candle. I'm around the midway mark. If you can see here, I have a pretty deep wax pool going on. Normally, I keep my burn time under 3 hours, but so far extending it a little bit more does create stronger flames, but no real issues there. Slight, again, mushroom fallout. I just wish the scent was a bit stronger. Now that I'm about right here, I feel like I'm starting to notice more the popcorn aspect. And Taylor over at Candle Coven did point out something that to her, she almost got this berry pastry note. And now when I think about it, I can see where she's coming with that because I feel like this scent is missing salt. So I feel like if you would add salt, you would get more of that popcorn feel. But since it's just butter, I feel like there are a lot of bakery scents that incorporate butter, like let's say, for example, a butter croissant mixed in with, let's say, a berry filling or a berry jam. And this at times does almost make me think of that. But I think what's stopping me from equating that to a gourmand specifically is I think that kernel aspect that I am able to detect, almost like at the bottom of the bag, how there's always some unpopped kernels with a little bit of like melted butter. And I think I can always pick up on that. I love the scent of popcorn. And I do like that this lingers in my room for about an hour or so. And yeah, I just really like this scent. Would I recommend it? Yes. Would I repurchase it? Yes. And I actually have a crate of these because while I feel like I can replicate this in vendor wax, I don't see Bath and Body Works returning or having this scent return. So if you don't know, Bath and Body Works did come out with their buttery popcorn candle a few years ago. It was, I believe, in some yellow packaging, and that was just straight up butter. I actually skipped out on that because that was a little bit too intense. You know how some, food grocery aisles, they have lightly salted, light butter. That buttery popcorn candle was extra butter, like intense extra butter. And I did not like it because of that, but I think that the addition of the slushy note, the blue raspberry, just really makes this, what am I trying to say? I feel like the slushy note, the added sugary, syrupy sweetness from it really complements the popcorn scent well. And maybe, I don't know, it triggers something nostalgic in my brain that just makes me really enjoy it. Yeah, overall, I would recommend this. Again, the biggest issue is the strength. I want it to be stronger, an 8 out of 10. But maybe if it was stronger, I'd have that same reaction as I did with buttery popcorn from Bath and Body Works, and I'd probably skip out on it. But yeah, again, strength, I would give this a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. And I just want it to be a bit more. Also, no issues with sooting, surprisingly, despite the fact that even right now, my flames are pretty intense. And I think now that I am lower down in the candle, I like it slightly a little bit less because I'm missing a bit of that berry slushy note that I got more intensely at the top. So I don't know if maybe that happens if I keep my burn time a little bit shorter, or if, I don't know, the blue raspberry notes were at the top. But yeah, overall, this is a fun candle. I would recommend it. However, this is definitely not blind buy safe because this is very specific, a quote unquote specific pairing. I think that if you don't like popcorn scents, I personally can pick it up, and even picked it up on cold when I was getting a majority amount of blue raspberry slush. So yeah, that has been my review. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye.